to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday,
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight,
I've changed my party. We've changed our party. I've changed this party. This is a changed Labour Party. We were a changed party.
we've had 50 days of Sir Keir Starmer. I pick him apart, and what a day to do it.
We'll keep those prices down. We will not allow these rises to happen.
That looks like a lie, doesn't it? Because your energy bills are now going up. Also, Big Brother Britain. Police are ramping up facial recognition cameras. Is this against our human rights? And Jack Daniels has banned diversity and inclusion policies. Is it the end of woke? Plus,
our school, we behave very much as a collective. We do not separate children according to race and religion.
Britain's strictest head teacher got amazing results. Time to bring back discipline in schools. Oh yes, and the BBC made fools of themselves at the Democrat convention in America.
My name is Noah Schwartz. I use he, they pronouns. I'm just really excited that we have, the first black woman that could be the president of the United States.
On my panel tonight is ex-BBC and ITV political chief John Sargent, entrepreneur Joanna Jarju, and political commentator Alex Armstrong. Oh, and can you tell me why David Lammy is getting ripped apart for this? Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Get your wallet out, because Keir Starmer's about. Next.
Very good evening to you. It's just after 9 o'clock. Patrick, up next. First, though, a look at the top stories tonight. And investigators are turning their attention to what caused a super yacht to capsize and sink in Sicily on Monday, now that all bodies have been recovered. 18-year-old Hannah Lynch was the last person rescue divers were searching for. She has tonight been remembered by her sister as cheeky and endlessly caring. The family have also released this photo of Hannah and her father, the tech tycoon Mike Lynch, who has also died. Well, news from the United States in the last hour or so that former Democrat Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has confirmed he is suspending his independent presidential election campaign. Instead, he's now backing Donald Trump, who's, of course, a Republican. In a speech in Arizona in the last hour, he has said his uncle relished debate and criticised Kamala Harris for not doing the same.
How did the Democratic Party choose a candidate that has never done an interview or debate during the entire election cycle? We know the answers. He did it by weaponizing the government agencies. He did it by abandoning democracy. He did it by suing the opposition and by disenfranchising American voters.
From October, households in England, Scotland and in Wales will see their annual energy bill rise by 10%. Regulator Ofgem says that increase to the price cap is because of higher wholesale costs. It means families will spend an average of more than £1,700 a year now on gas and electricity. Energy Secretary Ed Miliband says he understands why people are concerned.
I know this will be really worrying news for lots of families who will face even greater struggles this winter. And it's a direct result of our country's exposure to international gas markets that are controlled by dictators, and that is a legacy left to us by the last government. That's why this government has a plan to do something about it. Our mission for clean, homegrown power that we control in this country.
Energy Secretary Ed Miliband speaking earlier. Well, in other news today, Elsie Stankham, who was killed in the Southport knife attack, has been remembered today with balloons and one of her favourite Taylor Swift songs at her funeral. The 7-year-old's parents have described her as a truly unforgettable daughter. Deputy Chief Constable of Merseyside Police Chris Green was at the service and he spoke on behalf of the emergency services.
Sure, in a time of such great sorrow, the resolve and spirit of this community has provided a source of comfort and reassurance. Through the many acts of kindness and solidarity, it is evident that Southport is not just a place, it is your home, and it will forever be Elsie's home.
The government has given the green light now to start payments to victims of the contaminated blood scandal. The scheme will compensate more than 30,000 people infected with hepatitis C, hepatitis B or HIV from NHS treatment between the 1970s and 1990s. Critics claim there are unfair disparities in the compensation scheme, but ministers say they are proud the legislation has now been signed. Full payouts are expected by 2025. Magistrates in England and in Wales have been told to stop jailing people for several weeks to try to ease overcrowding in prisons. Offenders who are likely to serve time behind bars are to have their sentencing hearings postponed days after emergency measures kicked in. It allows defendants to be held in custody for longer. And last month, an early release scheme for some inmates was also announced. That will come into force next month. And finally, some tents have gone flying at Leeds Festival, which had to shut 3 stages today because of strong winds brought by Storm Lillian. It also knocked out power for tens of thousands of homes, while trees have blocked rail lines and roads across northern England. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'm back with you in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Another day, another broken promise from Sir Keir Starmer. The promise? Under Labour, your energy bills won't go up. 2 years ago, he said this.
We'll keep those prices down. We will not allow these rises to happen.
He even promised Labour has a fully costed plan to freeze your bills.
That's why the Labour Party has a fully costed plan to freeze energy bills this winter. And we'll pay for that with a windfall tax on those unexpected profits. I understand. I completely understand why so many people are frustrated at the government that's not doing anything about their energy bills.
Labour even tweeted this. Labour would act now to stop energy bills rising, saving you £1,000 this winter. In May this year, he went on Good Morning Britain and said Labour would save you £400 on your bills. In June this year, he said again that Labour would cut bills, create jobs and provide energy security. In Parliament, he hammered the Tories for even thinking about cutting the winter fuel payments for pensioners.
Last year, the Prime Minister was apparently drawing up plans to remove the winter fuel allowance from pensioners. So will he now rule out taking pensioners' winter fuel payments off them to help fund his £46 billion black hole?
Then people voted for him, he won the election, and this happens. He cuts winter fuel payments for the elderly. They now face, many of them, a choice between heating and eating. And then today, this happens. The average annual energy bill will rise by 10% to £1,717 in Great Britain from October. Ed Miliband, the Energy Secretary, is obviously blaming it all on the Tories, saying it's all about their toxic legacy. But, I mean, I thought that Labour had a fully costed plan. Didn't you? No? OK. This is the same Ed Miliband who has just flown some 6,000 miles, by the way, to Brazil to talk about climate change. Hasn't he heard of a Zoom call? Labour voters are waking up to the reality of Sir Keir Starmer and co, saying one thing before the election and doing something completely different now they're in power.
I'm a staunch Labour voter, and I was ashamed to see a Labour government hit the poorest people the most.
Get your wallets out, because Keir Starmer's about. Let's get the thoughts of my panel now. I am joined by former BBC and ITV political chief is John Sargent. We've got entrepreneur and businesswoman Joanna Jarju and political commentator Alex Armstrong. John, it's proving trickier for Keir Starmer in government than it was in opposition, isn't it?
Well, that's it. We all knew it was going to be, and they knew it was going to be. But could he have gone into the election saying, I'm going to put up taxes, your heating's going to go up by 10%? No, they couldn't, in fact. This is a bit of politics, and we'll all suffer from it. But the key thing to bear in mind is that the legacy was passed on from the Conservatives. You can argue about it, you can argue about whose fault it was, but don't say it was all rosy. Everyone knew this was going to be very, very difficult because we haven't got much money in the public purse. It's as simple as that.
OK, but, you know, cutting the winter fuel payments for the elderly, a lot of old people now choosing between heating and eating, when Keir Starmer absolutely hammered the Tories for that a little while ago. You know, that, to me, seems outrageous.
Well, it is outrageous, and it obviously isn't, you know, the most ideal thing that people want. But realistically, I actually think that it's more even-handed of Labour. At the end of the day, you know, they resisted reversing the two-child benefit cap. We can't just always have this kind of ring around pensioners as if they're kind of more special than other parts of society. It's really unfortunate that we are in this 20 billion black hole. The economy is obviously on its knees, so we have to be able to kind of pull from different bits.
£3.1 billion was borrowed by this government last month alone to pay for public services, and unfortunately the choice there was let pensioners freeze this winter to pay our union mates.
No, but I don't even think it's that, because you've got to look at it kind of holistically, in the sense that if these strikes do continue, then the amount that the economy actually loses, and we depend on productivity as well for growth. So we need these strikers to get back to work. So when you actually tally it up, it's better for them to settle with the train.
And these were independent pay review bodies, so it's very easy to say, oh, they gave the money.
But
no, the money had to be paid because the public sector workers knew they had a very strong case.
But I don't want to get bogged down in the strikes thing, so I'm going to talk about that later. But seriously, though, they could have attached some conditions to that money, and they chose not to.
Yes, they could have done in some cases.
People's bills are going to go up by about 10% now, and, you know, a lot of people could have seen that coming. But Keir Starmer, and I could have chosen more examples in that monologue there, has repeatedly, time and time again, said under Labour this won't happen. Well, here we are.
Well, your bills would go down, famously, right? Your energy bills will go down. That's what he said. And this is also a problem because Ed Miliband is selling this GB Energy thing to the public over the last election campaign, which he... Well, you would say that, Joan, wouldn't you? And he said that's going to be our saviour. You're going to have cheap bills. Your bills will go down by 100 and something quid. Well, obviously, we know in the short term, and we all said that the net zero madness that this government is going to impose on us is going to push bills up. Not only that, they also stopped drilling new oil. They've got rid of all of that policy, so cheap fuel is no longer available. And so rather than this being a sensible transition, if we're going to do it, let's be sensible about it, we're now going to punish the most impoverished in our society in order to have this grand plan for GB Energy, which is obviously now punishing pensioners first. So let your nan freeze. That's what Keir Starmer wants to do.
But you can't go on subsidising people's heating bills. bills. You can't do it endlessly. There comes a point when you've got to balance your income.
Yes, I agree, John. I agree. But the problem is, what we have. But this is meant to be the Be Kind Labour Party, and the problem is that they're going to let pensioners. There will be pensioners that die this winter as a result of this policy. Are we saying that is acceptable?
No, but
it never should be acceptable.
But don't pretend as if all pensioners are going to freeze this winter. Yes, you know, there are some people that unfortunately will miss out, but they do also have the pension credit scheme as well, which is going to be able to be of benefit to around 800,000 pensioners. So they're taking away to some extent from one side, but they are also helping people who are at the lower end as well.
Fine, but where's the fully costed plan, John?
Oh no,
where is it?
It was never there. To be honest.
So, but this is. This is a government of service.
No, I'm not.
This is credibility, you know.
No, hold on, Pat. I'm not defending the government in this. Their whole aim was to win the election. That's what they did by promising as little as they could, by obfuscating about all sorts of problems which they knew were coming up. I accept that. The overall point is we all know that our country is in deep trouble. That's why the Conservatives were nearly wiped out at the general election. So what you can't do is to say, oh, well, this is all now their fault in 6 weeks.
At the end of the day,
this was the position we were all in. We knew this.
You can tell that this isn't solely a political decision, because when we've looked at past governments, they have protected pensioners. You know, they've had the
rightfully
so.
No, rightfully so.
It made sense for the Conservative Party to do that.
No, but it makes sense to look after people who put tax into this country for their entire lives to be protected by this country.
What I'm saying is that it also wasn't just a sole political decision, which it has been before.
OK.
So if you're going to do things like not reverse the two-child benefit cap, and you know that the government, the country is in the state that it is, then you should also, means test other parts as well.
Well, we haven't means tested the gold-plated pension scheme that we're giving to the civil service, which is going to cost this country billions. Why don't we scrap that? But we won't, because they're Keir Starmer's mates. We say it's not political, but Keir Starmer's looking after his club of the civil service at the top there, who are going to get these massive, massive payouts, when we could be giving that to people who might actually die this winter. I don't know what happened to the Labour Party overnight. They've seemed to
in the country have private pensions, and then they get this money. Like
but that's their hard-earned cash, Joanna. That's their hard-earned private cash.
When you look at what I do disagree with, actually, is the fact that I think it was 11.4 million pensioners that were getting it, and then now 10 million are losing it. Maybe that's too far, but in terms of, you know, the thresholds, I do think that they should, because it's like, why am I going to be sending myself on a yacht if I'm a pensioner and then receiving extra benefit? It makes no sense.
It does not make sense to give everybody this money. It's easy to do because you then don't have to do any testing and all the rest of it. But if you look at it, again, sensibly from a distance, would it be a good idea to give just everyone some money?
There are means-tested people in this country. Carol Vorderman did a famous interview with somebody on the phone, a disabled pensioner who is going to be taken off. Her and her husband couldn't walk, couldn't get out of bed. She is going to be one of those people who doesn't get that fuel payment anymore. And so this is what I mean. The means testing isn't even good enough.
No, but that's an argument for improving the means testing system.
Fine.
Not an argument.
But it's not ready.
Let's give everyone let's give everyone this.
For me, I understand this. There are arguments for and against the whole pensioners' winter fuel payments thing. I get all of that. But for me, this cuts right to the core of Keir Starmer's government. And it cuts to the core of lies and hypocrisy. And that is a problem for a person who's billed himself as Mr. Integrity. And when you see him stood in Parliament there hammering the Tories for even thinking about doing this, which actually some people are now saying, look, there was a case
No,
for
it's
doing
fiendishly difficult.
Yeah, and then,
Patrick, we can agree to that. It is very difficult for Keir Starmer in this position. Nobody's saying it's easy.
But it's not difficult.
No point said it was going to be easy.
All of this about Keir Starmer lied and stuff, it's literally been 2 minutes since he's been in government, right? If he said but if he says that, you know, your energy bills are going to come down, he didn't say your energy bills are going to come down within the first month. These increases that we're seeing are because of global factors as well. And if Ofgem have then made this decision, you can't just say then, oh, it's Keir Starmer.
But we're also cutting off cheap fuel in order that would help us to pay for these things. That's a political decision.
That can be a criticism in terms of, you know, whether we should be renewing North Sea
oil licenses. Licenses.
But the rest of it, you can't say that it's his fault.
OK, all right. Well, look, a lively start. You love to see it. Happy Friday, winners. So, still to come, is the Prime Minister about to be bullied into repealing anti-strike laws by trade unions? Who is really running Britain? But up next, Jack Daniels becomes the latest, quote-unquote, woke corporation to scrap its self-imposed diversity quotas. Has this decision been made in good spirit, or is it a bit of a whiskey move? Patrick Christys tonight. We're on GBNews.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Michael found the recipe for success without going to university. Instead, he went looking for answers inside of a kitchen. The 22-year-old has just finished a level 2 course in professional cookery at UCB, a college in Birmingham.
When I started UCB, I was expecting to be so intense from day one, but it's not. It sort of builds up, so to the point where you get comfortable. And building that comfort is a huge part of becoming a chef, because you need to be comfortable being in your own skin.
This week, tens of thousands of students get their A-level results. The college wants them to remember university isn't the only option after school, and West Midlands Mayor Richard Parker agrees.
University is the right route for lots of our young people, but there are other pathways to getting access to qualifications that will give young people the skills they need to succeed in life.
Further education principal Rosa Wells says apprenticeships and technical courses are also great routes to a career.
Here at University College Birmingham, we offer vocational courses. These are hands-on technical courses that can give people a different opportunity, something different to school. So we've got brilliant facilities that really give students industry standard training.
A skills shortage across the UK means youngsters learning trades are desperately needed. 36% of job vacancies are due to shortages. The Labour government's new body, Skills England, has been created to bring training providers and businesses together with local and national authorities plus unions to target trade gaps and regional requirements. Michael's now finishing his qualification. Where he goes next is down to him.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. Now, coming up, as unions are now asking to repeal anti-strike laws to make it easier for them to go on strike, this is despite massive pay rises, of course, will this take Britain back to the 70s? But first, it's time for our head-to-head. So, the whiskey maker behind Jack Daniels has scrapped their diversity, equity and inclusion scheme. The company told its staff on Wednesday that they will drop linking executive pay to DEI progress, stop taking part in an annual ranking of companies with an LGBTQ plus whatever else friendly working environment, and put an end to woke training sessions. While American firms, including Microsoft, push ahead and remove the need for DEI, we haven't seen much of that in British firms and institutions who are still firmly strapped into the woke movement. So the RAF, for example, their diversity targets, it turned out, actually discriminated against white men. And recently, 3 white police officers won a discrimination case against Thames Valley Police. They were snubbed from a promotion simply because of their skin colour, it appeared. Now that the schemes that aim to tackle discrimination end up causing it, is it time for Britain to follow suit from American firms and scrap all diversity targets? Let me know what you think. Go to gbnews.com/your say. Tweet me at GBNews, and while you're there, go and have a vote in our poll. But going head-to-head on this now, I'm joined by social commentator and TV presenter Jenny Barnett and associate comment editor from The Telegraph, Mutaz Ahmed. Both of you, thank you very much. Great to have you both on the show. Mutaz, I'll start with you, please. Do you think we should just crack down, stop, scrap all these diversity targets?
Well, I don't think it's much of a surprise that it's all American companies leading the way back to meritocracy when it comes to employing people and strategies for companies. There are two important points to make, which is the first point is the executives being required to focus on diversity rather than making profit. That's costly, and companies are waking up to that. And the second thing, I think, which is important for ethnic minorities, is increasingly it's becoming clear that the normal man on the street, black or brown, does not necessarily benefit from these schemes. These schemes benefit a particular proportion of ethnic minorities, those who are already generally ahead, those who are already specially trained in banking, for instance, who are already going to get ahead, rather than the average Joe, let's say, or Black Joe. And that's an important point to make.
Yeah, no, good stuff. Jenny, I'll throw it your way then. So, yeah, should we not be scrapping all of these diversity targets, and what do they actually achieve?
Now, I think that you have to have positive discrimination in all sorts of ways. But I just want to talk about Robbie Starbuck for a moment, because he says he's restoring sanity when in fact he's not. He's seeding dissent. He's a conservative influencer, and it's in his best interest to polarize and destabilize society as much as he can. He's a frightened man. You know, the Tea Party are on their back foot now because of Kamala Harris. And I think what's happening is that he's frightening people into deciding that we shouldn't be supporting blacks and browns and LGBT and all the rest of it. And he's fighting for the straight man. He actually says the straight white man, but it's not the answer. We should be fighting for absolutely everybody. And you look at the riots that we had, more people, the majority, I know you want to come in, Pat, but a majority of people are about harmony and peace and not about disruption. And what Robbie Starbuck is doing is fueling that and is enjoying the fueling of that. And over here, we have positive discrimination, and I think it has to be that, even though I think diversity in the 21st century is archaic and it's outrageous, because everybody should have a say. And given climate change, and I'll finish, climate change, we have more and more people moving around the globe in a way that we have never had done before. And everybody has to be seen as equal.
Right, OK. Gosh, you managed to cram a heck of a lot of stuff there into just one answer. Ticks a lot of boxes. Mutaz, I'll throw it back over to you then. So companies like the BBC, well, it's not really a company, is it, but the RAF or the British Army or Thames Valley Police, for example, have actually fallen foul recently of having really ridiculous diversity targets. Do you think that has actually held them back a bit in terms of performance of their fundamental task?
Performance and trust, right? Someone should be employed based on whether they're good at something. That's the best way to do it. And positive discrimination is still discrimination. And it ends up with let's say the ethnic minorities employed feeling patronized, and others, so white employees, feeling perhaps that the ethnic minorities being employed is not up to the job. That's a bad outcome. So, you know, we can go ahead with slogans, but the best way to do this, as it always has been, is to pick someone based on their skill set. And, you know, if you look at the exam results for, let's say, Black African second-generation migrants, increasingly you're going to see ethnic minorities grow in those high skill set jobs.
Yeah, no, indeed. And as well, it's on that point, Jenny, that I'll ask you this. You know, if we are going to have some kind of positive discrimination, should some of that not be thrown at working-class white boys?
Well, it should be positive discrimination should be for everybody. I think when we look at the situation that's happening with Robbie Starbuck and these American firms, it's all about profit and it's all about bonuses and it's all about division. And I've written that.
Can I just get in there, Jenny? Sorry, just an important point. This because I think one of the problems with excessive amounts of diversity quotas is that actually it almost ignores profit. Sometimes the only people who are making a profit out of it are the ones who get a bonus for actually they're hitting a quota, right? The actual companies, the bottom line of the company themselves often do no better at all by virtue of the fact that 20% of their force is now this or 20% is LGBT.
You have to look at Robbie Starbuck's motives. I think what my compatriot here is talking about, I absolutely understand. I think, however, that this Robbie Starbuck is about something else. He's talking about giving the straight white man a sense of entitlement, and now he's opposing the human rights, which says something about him that he wants to dismantle humanity, human rights. I think the man is twisted. I think he's a very clever man. And I think the debate, I'm not sure it's about meritocracy. It's certainly not about slogans, but it's about everybody being given a chance.
OK.
You made one.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to say, if some sections of the society haven't been given a chance, then there has to be positive discrimination. And these big firms should be leading the way.
OK, go on, Mitaz.
You made one very good point, which is that it's all about profit. That's exactly what it should be about for a business. Maximizing profit so it can employ more people, more black and white and brown people. That's the point. It is all about profit. And increasingly, these diversity schemes distract from that.
Mitaz, because Jenny, we haven't got time to necessarily go into it. I mean, there have been numerous studies recently, I've covered it on this show, which do appear to show there's been a marginal, negligible, or in fact absolutely completely zero benefit whatsoever from companies at their bottom line that do decide to enact these kind of policies. But Mitaz, can I ask you, fundamentally, at a fundamental level, do you think Britain, modern Britain, needs to have some kind of diversity target attached to various things? Do we need that? Without that, would we immediately revert back to jobs for the boys, middle-class white people who've been to Oxbridge, getting all the good gigs?
We don't need it. Ethnic minorities in this country don't need it. You see certain groups of ethnic minorities doing incredibly well, much better than white working-class boys, much better than white middle-class boys. They don't need that help. They don't need anything that's going to undermine them in their career. And increasingly, you're seeing actually white working class men, for instance, being disregarded. And for our sort of societal fabric, we don't need that as a country because that blows up in the
All right, look, both of you, can I just say a massive thank you? Both of you made some really strong points on both sides there, which is much appreciated. Another cracker of a head-to-head. That's Jenny Barnett there, and Associate Comment-Editor from The Telegraph, Mutaz Ahmed. Right, who do you agree with? Is it time now for businesses to scrap diversity targets? Alex on X says DEI is the most useless thing ever. People should be hired based on skill, not anything else. Matt says hire people because they're the best people for the job, not because of their skin colour. It's that simple. And Julie says, as a small business, I would never employ someone to tick a box. Best person for the job every day of the week. Can I just say, Julie, I think that's a really great point. Because someone, dare I say, in your position, a small business, you might not have the luxury of being able to just waft around these completely pointless DEI targets, right? Your business probably lives and dies on the best person being employed for that job, so all power to you. 97% of you think that diversity targets should be scrapped. 3% of you say they shouldn't. Now, coming up at 10 p.m, after 50 days of hard labour, I'll be giving my verdict on Keir Starmer's first few weeks in power. And as the Michaela School, yet again, bucks this socio-economic trends, this is that school run by Britain's strictest head teacher. They've got absolutely cracking results. Is it time to bring back discipline into our schools? But next, is the Prime Minister about to be bullied into repealing anti-strike laws by the trade unions? Who really runs Britain? Stay tuned.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Through this weekend, it's going to remain fairly cool and wet for many of us on Saturday. Drier and a little bit warmer through the rest of the weekend, though. It's been a disruptive start to the day with Storm Lillian. That's now moved away into the North Sea. Behind it is a clearer picture. We're starting to pick up more of a southwesterly wind. That will drag in some showers to parts of southwestern Scotland, many western areas of Scotland, in fact, as well as Northern Ireland through the first part of the night. But over to the second part of the night, the early hours of Saturday, we look to the south, where a band of very heavy rain moves into many southern counties. Lots of cloud pulling in from the south as well, ahead of that across the Wales and the Midlands. Now, there is a rain warning in force for many eastern areas of England, particularly the south and east, where we could see around 60 millimetres of rain falling throughout Saturday morning. And with lots of people travelling around, there could be some disruption on the roads and delays to travel. Further north, a slightly drier picture, but still some pretty heavy showers are likely for parts of Scotland and northwestern England. A drier picture, though, for the far north of Scotland as well as the north and east across parts of Aberdeenshire and the Moray coast. And here it should stay relatively dry and bright through much of the day, but showers will continue to affect the north and west, as well as some areas of Wales and southwestern England. Now, the heaviest rain will clear away to the far south and east, but showers will likely move into these areas later on in the afternoon. So a pretty mixed picture for most of us on Saturday. And with quite brisk winds still through the day, it's still going to feel on the cooler side of things. We could see temperatures sticking around in the mid-teens for many of us. On Sunday, it looks a little bit warmer. There will be more in the way of sunshine, particularly through the morning across parts of England and Wales, but the next batch of rain will spread into parts of the northwest. Doesn't look quite as heavy, but will introduce quite a lot of cloud and some quite widespread drizzly rain. More widely dry as we look ahead to Monday, and temperatures will start to rise much closer to average. And we're looking at the mid-20s by Tuesday.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Where's Margaret Thatcher when you need her, hey? Our still fresh out of opposition Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has already been forced to borrow £3.1 billion, that was last month alone, after capitulating to trade union demands on public sector pay rises, whilst the rest of the country has to deal with stagnant wages and rising living costs. Not satisfied, though, with rinsing the taxpayer to fund wage increases for his party's bankrollers, it now seems the PM is facing pressure from trade union barons to scrap anti-strike laws brought in under Margaret Thatcher to prevent a return to the economic stranglehold that Britain was put in by the trade unions in the 70s. It begs the question, doesn't it? Who is really running Britain, the government or the trade unions? I'm joined now by former Labour MP Stephen Pound. Stephen, thank you very, very much. We've already seen that Sir Keir Starmer is not exactly a master negotiator. He's going to cave into this as well, isn't he?
Look, of course, yes. Look, let's get a couple of things straight. Patrick, you're a decent good investigative journalist, you would never use one of these corny cliches like holding the country to ransom. There's a nonsense situation. What we've got here is the vast majority of this country are not in unions. The vast majority. A small number of people are in trades unions, and they have every right to actually work for some sort of redress. And the idea is that a happy workforce is very often a union workforce. The most productive workforce in Europe is the Volkswagen, 100% unionised. But onto your main issue about Margaret Thatcher's strike clause. Do you know, I've been a trade unionist all my working life. And there's a lot of people actually support some of the stuff that Margaret Thatcher brought in, particularly the minimum level of the ballot for strike action. What they don't support is that nonsense sort of gesture politics that the Tories brought in recently about a minimum level of standards during strikes. Nobody could enforce that. There's
I'll tell you
no
who
way
does
you can go
support
to
that. I'll tell you who does support that, Stephen. Excuse me. Everybody else. Everybody who has to use those services, everybody who has to go to hospital, everybody who has to get a train, everybody who has to send their kids to school, everybody who uses all of these services absolutely 100% supports a minimum service level during strike action. So,
Patrick,
what's wrong with it?
One day where that worked. Just tell me one day.
What? Say that again, sorry.
Has there ever been one day when a minimum service level was imposed and it became the legal obligation and the unions went for it? Because I can tell you this, there's never been one single day that a minimum service level was imposed because it's unenforceable. People simply threw a sickie or they came up with some other reason. It was unenforceable. You catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. And you start threatening people, they push back.
OK. So why would the trade unions want to repeal the anti-strike laws unless they intended to go on strike more?
Well, they don't. There's only two trade unions who actually talked about it at the moment. As you know, it's Matt Rackham, the FBU, and what they're talking about. And I think they're playing to the audience. They're playing to the band there. We all know in the reality that most trade union members are actually quite happy with actually having a minimal level of approval for a strike. We don't want to get to the situation. You're probably too young to remember the 80s, but when the National Union of Mine Workers went on strike with no ballot of the members, it was an unsustainable strike, and so you couldn't actually get the miners out because they felt that this was simply unfair. So that aspect of Margaret Thatcher's strike law and secondary picketing is the other one. I think you can't repeal that. Nobody's going to repeal that.
We've already given them what they want a lot of the time when it comes to yes, we have. When it comes to the amount of money for no strings attached at all. If you decide now that you're a train driver and if you were my boss and I was having my lunch and you walked up to me and you said, "Hello, Patrick, how are you? I can start my lunch break again. I still get my pay rise." Apparently, if I stand too near a microwave at work and I happen to be a train driver, I can take a day off to go and get myself checked at the doctors. I mean, this stuff is absolutely ludicrous, Stephen, and we're all paying for it.
I've heard this story 100 times. Believe you me, what this says to me is two words: bad management. If the management, again, get themselves dragged down and involved in that sort of nonsense, then we need to actually think seriously about whether managers can. And you're not telling me that trade unions are so powerful that they can actually force a mindset on every manager. Look, managers in many cases are members of the trade unions themselves. I know these stories about the microwave and all that rubbish, but it's a bit like those cliches about straight bananas that we used to have when people were attacking the EU. Look, the reality is you get more done by working with people than you do by working against them. A workforce which is content is a productive workforce. So I don't think that we should actually be setting up to oppose and have a situation of enmity.
What should we do then? So you've said that there's no way that Keir Starmer will give in to this, but you're also simultaneously claiming that he should do whatever he should do to keep this lot happy. So what would he have to do? Give in to it? I mean, at the moment, as I understand, right, we have to have a minimum 50% turnout for a union when they come to vote on strike action. And for such sectors such as education, health and transport, 40% of the entire membership has to support strike action for it to be legal. Do you think he'll row back on that? Will he make that easier?
Look, Patrick, the one thing that sticks in people's throats in this country is fair play. A lot of people who, when they see trade unions getting a lot of money, they actually think secretly in their heart of hearts, given the chance, I'd do the same. I'd go for that and I'd get that money. But there's a sense that it's not fair. It's not fair play. If you've got one group of people who are using their muscle in a way that's disproportionate to their membership. So the thing about the 50% level, it's never, ever worked. There's never been... Can you think of a single strike in the last 6 years?
No, it's the percentage you would need to go on strike legally, isn't it, though? That's the thing. It would have to be a 50% turnout requirement at the ballot in order to go on strike.
Train drivers went on strike. There's all those strikes, and not in one single occasion did the Tories enforce that law because it was flipping unworkable. And we told them so at the time.
OK, all right. Well, look, it remains to be seen exactly what goes on, doesn't it, really? But Keir Starmer is going to come under a huge amount of pressure. And I know that people, when they saw those numbers land a couple of days ago, that £3.1 billion have been borrowed just last month alone, directly going towards public sector pay rises. If the upshot of that is that then still further is, there's another cave into them, I'm not sure how well that will play.
You'll hold Keir Starmer's feet to the fire. I know you will. And I look forward to it because I believe in fair play too. But I believe in fair play to the workers and the bosses.
And you know what? I will say fair play to you because it's 20 to 10 on a Friday night and you are at work. Thank you very much, Stephen. All right, mate. Take care. I'll see you in a bit. That's Stephen Pounder, former Labour MP. Right, coming up at 10 p.m, after 50 days of hard Labour, I'll be giving my verdicts on Keir Starmer's first few weeks in power. But we'll dive into tomorrow's front pages at 10:30. Can I also just say I've had early sight of one of the front pages. Jermaine Genius, the footballer, has been speaking to The Sun, and he's got some quite astonishing things to say. I will bring that to you at 10:30, so don't miss it. But next, as the Michaela School in London, so it's run by Britain's strictest head teacher, all right, has returned some unbelievable exam results, some of the best exam results in the country, while other schools, state schools down the road, are just appalling, OK? Is it time to just bring back discipline in schools? What do you reckon? Stay tuned.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Prince Harry says we need to be more cautious when adopting artificial intelligence.
Yes. AI is scary. And I think a lot of people are scared and uncertain. And I think one of the solutions to that is education and awareness, because it's becoming harder and harder to stem the flow from the source. And therefore, really, it comes down to all of us to be able to spot the true from the fake.
Well, that was a whole load of nothing, wasn't it?
Wisdom.
Yes, we're going to get the thoughts now of former royal correspondent at The Sun, Charles Ray.
Well, I have to say, I actually agree with Harry and anyone else who says that we have to be cautious about things that appear on social media.
Disinformation and fake news is a controversial topic because who is the ultimate arbiter of truth and fact?
So do you trust Harry to determine?
Well, I don't trust Harry to determine that, no.
They never actually say what they want, though, in terms of social media and things. I mean, do they actually have an idea of what the online media landscape should look like? I mean, there's clearly a veiled attack on Elon Musk and the like, but do they just want anything nasty off there? They just want things that, are then proven to be untrue at some point off there? It's easy to stand and say, I want the online world to be safer and it to be less nasty and for there to be less untruths on there. Yeah. It's much more difficult, as we found out in this country and every other country, to actually work out what the policy looks like.
You're absolutely right, Emily, that it's all very well everybody jumping on the bandwagon and saying, oh, we've got to clamp down on social media. Like, I'm suggesting that as well. But, they haven't come up with any solution to it, any program to make it safer and healthier for people to use.
The People's Channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. And breaking right now, we can have a little sneak peek of the front page of The Sun newspaper, because Jermaine Genius has told The Sun that he is ashamed and has let everybody down after being sacked as a BBC presenter. He has admitted that he sent, quote, inappropriate messages to 2 colleagues on the One Show. So I'll just read in a little bit more detail here. He says that we've not really spoken properly since. She's absolutely raging. He, I believe there is referring to his wife. He confessed to lying to his wife, Ellie, during a family holiday and sneaking off to take a Zoom call with BBC bosses over his X-rated messages. He's now trying to claw back their relationship after telling his wife he'd been dismissed for sending inappropriate messages to 2 female colleagues. He apparently also has a teenage daughter from a previous relationship and says he's been kicked out of the bedroom that the couple shared at their £1 million house in Hertfordshire. Apparently, he broke down in tears during the interview with The Sun and said that he didn't know if his wife would ever forgive him. We'll have more on that a little bit later on in the show. But yesterday, pupils up and down Britain got their GCSE results, and like every year, there was a mass of tears shed, some of joy, some of disappointment. But one woman who was certainly not recoiling in despair was the controversial headmistress of a North London school called the Michaela School, Catherine Burblesig. So she has a quarter of its pupils eligible for free school meals. 70% of them come from households where English is not the first language. Many would write the institution off as inevitably returning mediocre exam results, OK? But no, her school continues to be one of the most successful state schools in the country after adopting old-fashioned discipline, traditional values of personal responsibility and patriotism. They sing the national anthem every morning, and there is a zero-tolerance approach for self-pity. And you might remember this school because a little while ago she went to court and won over not having to introduce a prayer room, basically, for children at that school. So she held the line on that and won. But should Catherine Burblesig's methods be adopted across the board? Should we go back to basics and be more disciplined in our schools? Well, I'm joined now by the principal of LBS Ascot. It's Christys Cunniff. Thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. Is this just fact now that discipline in schools works?
It absolutely does. And we should have never slackened off if it has happened in places. And a lot of schools haven't slackened off. And, you know, children like boundaries, they like discipline, and it's good for success. It breeds security in a healthy environment to learn.
I mean, the discrepancy between her school and the other schools in the area is absolutely stark. Something like 50% of her entire year group scored, like, all 9s at GCSE, which I think is unbelievable, really, isn't it? I've been to that school, I've attended that school. Meanwhile, if you go down the road to some of the other local schools, you know, with the best will in the world, they are some of the worst performing in the country. Have we gone too soft on kids? Have we gone too soft on discipline? What's happened, do you think?
It's very hard to comment because all schools are different and they've all got their own challenges. But obviously, whatever she's doing is amazing. It's fantastic. And maybe, you know, lots of people should go and visit Catherine and see what she's doing, take a leaf out of her book, because it seems to be working. But we do have to acknowledge that schools have different challenges.
She's actually caused quite a lot of controversy for the approach that she takes. So children have to remain absolutely silent in the corridors. When they have breaks, they're not really breaks, actually. They're kind of going into learning rooms. Again, it's silent study. Then during things like lunch hour, etc., they do a raft of things as they're eating their lunch, and they'll perform a series of tasks. Now, I did go there. I must say the kids did seem to love it, and the results do speak for themselves. But some people say that's draconian, it stifles creativity, it's a little bit North Korea. What do you think?
Again, you've got to know your school. But if you went to the school and you saw that the children were happy and they enjoyed what they were doing, then there's nothing wrong with that at all. You've got to strike a balance, and you've got to look at the school culture and what your children are feeling and how they respond to you. If you're too draconian, you could create more damage than good. So it's best to look at each school on an individual basis.
Now, look, I am incredibly sensitive to people who do, unfortunately, have very genuine issues when it comes to things like anxiety and depression and all of that stuff. And, you know, I do get that exams are an incredibly stressful time and an anxiety-inducing time. However, I did also read an article earlier on this week about the amount of children that were missing important exams because of anxiety. And I did think that that meant that really a large amount of them were being allowed to miss exams because of anxiety. And this, to me, seems to be the polar opposite of that. What you've got here is discipline. No, you will do this, you will, and you can get through it, and we'll support you through it. Have we been too soft when it comes to children saying that they're too anxious to do things, do you think, recently?
I do in some respects. I think we've got to remember that COVID was only 4 years away, and we are seeing a knock-on effect with children with that. And also, you've got to look at our exam system as well, whether it's fit for purpose. And, a third of children would have failed their maths and English this summer. And for me, that's not right. But I do believe, this is the real world, and no one's going to cut you any slack when you go into adult life. So it starts now, unfortunately. So it's finding that balance, striking a balance, and trying to get our children into school to take the exams. Otherwise, what setup do they have to be successful in the future?
Yeah, I mean, this is it, isn't it? It's if you are, given certain principles and given certain, core beliefs, as it were. I mean, she famously did not give in to this idea that there should be a segregated prayer section, mainly because she said, well, that would have to divide the community. Certain children would have to therefore go over there and do that, whilst other children would not. And also at her school, there was a large percentage of her school who are Muslim, which would mean that a load of them would have to go off and do something different. And it simply just wouldn't work. And she actually won that court case, didn't she? Which was quite good. So she has held the line there, I think, on that, and that has actually proven to have demonstrated results. Also, I do wonder, your school obviously is a little bit different, but if you are a parent and you send your child to a school, you probably just want them to get the best results possible, don't you? And this is an example of that. I mean, do parents want discipline at schools?
Absolutely, 100%. And sometimes parents need help also with their children and a little bit of advice when they're at home as well. So it's a partnership, and you've got to know your school and know what works for school. But I'm quite a tough head teacher. I do it with a smile on my face, but I am quite tough. But I do admire Catherine for what she's done. She knows her school. She's stood firm. And I think if more of us stood firm like that right across the country, we'd be giving children a better chance.
Do you think kids have got a bit softer?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What kind of examples of that do they respond less well to shouting, do they?
No, but you've got to be careful that you don't sound like your parents, in my day and all of that. But when I was at school, you had to toe the line. And I'm quite old-fashioned in my views, and I do believe at the end of the day, we've got to crack on. We've got a demanding world. We've got to build that resilience. We need to get out there and we need to make an impact. And if we are too soft on ourselves, we're not doing ourselves any favour, we're not doing our children any favour, and we're not doing the future of the country or the world any favours as well.
No, this is it. And you do have to look now at maybe us being served the receipts of arguably a generation of that happening, where we do have, unfortunately, a huge amount of people in that younger age demographic who could work and should work, but who are not even looking for work. And I don't think that that's all a physical problem. Some of them will have physical illnesses, etc. Fine, fair enough. But that is, to me, almost like a national mental sickness that does need to be sorted out for us all, really, because at the end of the day, if it isn't, then we do all end up paying for it. But, Christine, can I just say a massive thank you, especially on a Friday night at this time. I do hope you have a lovely weekend. That's Christine Cunniff there, who's the principal of LVS Ascot. Right, I've got a lot coming your way in the next hour. It's a big final hour of this show. We've got tomorrow's newspaper front pages. That's at 10:30 p.m. The big one, really, is that Jermaine Genius has spoken to The Sun. He says he's fighting to save his 13-year marriage now after the mother of his 3 children, has booted him out of their bedroom because supposedly, well, The Sun describe it as a sexting shame. So I will have more on that for you. And in a new initiative that would make George Orwell recoil, some of Britain's police forces are starting to utilise facial recognition technology to monitor our behaviour. It's in the guise of public safety. I think that Big Brother really is actually watching us, and it should arguably be against our human rights. But next, we've had 50 days of hard labour, haven't we? I'll be giving my verdict of Sir Keir Starmer's first few weeks in power. And there is, well, frankly, a heck of a lot to go at. We've had the unions, we've had immigration, we've had the riots, we've had two-tier policing. And believe me, there's even more where that came from.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Through this weekend, It's going to remain fairly cool and wet for many of us on Saturday, drier and a little bit warmer through the rest of the weekend, though. It's been a disruptive start to the day with Storm Lillian. That's now moved away into the North Sea. Behind it is a clearer picture. We're starting to pick up more of a southwesterly wind. That will drag in some showers to parts of southwestern Scotland, many western areas of Scotland, in fact, as well as Northern Ireland through the first part of the night. But over to the second part of the night, the early hours of Saturday, we look to the south, where a band of very heavy rain moves into many southern counties. Lots of cloud pulling in from the south as well, ahead of that across the Wales and the Midlands. Now, there is a rain warning in force for many eastern areas of England, particularly the south and east, where we could see around 60 millimetres of rain falling throughout Saturday morning. And with lots of people travelling around, there could be some disruption on the roads and delays to travel. Further north, a slightly drier picture, but still some pretty heavy showers are likely for parts of Scotland and northwestern England. A drier picture, though, for the far north of Scotland, as well as the north and east across parts of Aberdeenshire and the Moray coast. And here it should stay relatively dry and bright through much of the day, but showers will continue to affect the north and west, as well as some areas of Wales and southwestern England. Now, the heaviest rain will clear away to the far south and east, but showers will likely move into these areas later on in the afternoon. So a pretty mixed picture for most of us on Saturday. And with quite brisk winds still through the day, it's still going to feel on the cooler side of things. We could see temperatures sticking around in the mid-teens for many of us. On Sunday, it looks a little bit warmer. There will be more in the way of sunshine, particularly through the morning across parts of England and Wales, but the next batch of rain will spread into parts of the northwest. Doesn't look quite as heavy, but will introduce quite a lot of cloud and some quite widespread drizzly rain. More widely dry as we look ahead to Monday, and temperatures will start to rise much closer to average, and we're looking at the mid-20s by Tuesday.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We could be calling you with the news that you've won our latest Great British giveaway, an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash.
Hi, I'm John from sunny North Yorkshire, and I've just won £20,000 in the GB News Great British giveaway. It didn't cost much to enter, but of course if you're not in, you can't win. And here I am having won £20,000, and that's tax-free, so I'm rather pleased I did it.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight,
I've changed my party. We've changed our party. I've changed this party. This is a changed Labour Party. We were a changed party.
it's 50 days of Sir Keir Starmer.
We'll keep those prices down. We will not allow these rises to happen.
That was a lie. Your energy bills are going up.
Criminal gangs that are running this trade, making a fortune putting people in those boats, and we have...
There's still no head of Border Command. And he's caved into the unions. I'll pick him apart. Also... Big Brother Britain. Police are ramping up facial recognition technology. Is this against our human rights? And the BBC made fools of themselves at the Democrat convention in America.
My name is Noah Shorts. I use he, they pronouns. I'm just really excited that we have, the first black woman that could be the president of the United States.
Plus, Jermaine Genus admits all.
This is completely on me. I am 100% in the wrong and I accept full responsibility for that.
On my panel tonight, it's ex-BBC and ITV political chief John Sargent, entrepreneur Joanna Jarju and political commentator Alex Armstrong. Oh yes, and why is David Lammy getting ripped apart for this? Get ready, Britain, here we go. Keir Starmer's first 50 days. A disaster story. Next.
Very good evening to you from the newsroom just after 10 o'clock, and we'll start with that news that Patrick mentioned there involving former footballer and BBC presenter Jermaine Genus, who has tonight said he is ashamed and deeply sorry as he admitted to sending inappropriate messages to a female colleague. The 41-year-old, who's been married for 13 years, has told The Sun newspaper he's let down his family, his friends, colleagues and especially the women involved. Says he's now seeking help. Despite the scandal, he insists he's done nothing illegal, claiming the exchanges were between two consenting adults. Janus was sacked from his roles on Match of the Day and The One Show by the BBC yesterday. In the US, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says he's suspending his independent presidential bid and will instead be backing Donald Trump. Some of his family, though, say the decision is a betrayal of their values, calling it a sad ending to a sad story. But the nephew of former President JFK believes his presence in the race would help Democratic nominee Kamala Harris. Speaking tonight, he criticised her for not engaging in election debates.
How did the Democratic Party choose a candidate that has never done an interview or debate during the entire election cycle? We know the answers. They did it by weaponizing the government agencies. They did it by abandoning democracy. They did it by suing the opposition and by disenfranchising American voters.
Well, staying in the US, it's been reported today that several Secret Service agents are facing disciplinary action following the attempted assassination of Donald Trump last month. Some US news networks have been suggesting 5, possibly 6 agents have been put on leave, although the exact number isn't known at this stage. It's also understood those agents do include the head of the Pittsburgh field office, 3 other agents, and a member of Trump's personal detail. We've also heard tonight that hackers linked to Iran's government targeted both the Trump and the Biden administrations with deceptive emails and WhatsApp messages. That's according to the tech firm Meta. The hackers posed as customer support for Microsoft, Google and Yahoo, among others, in an attempt to trick officials. Meta has suspended the related accounts after that attack was reported by users. It adds, of course, to Iran's efforts to interfere in this year's US election, including recently posing as news outlets and hacking a former Trump advisor's email account. Here, the family of Mike and Hannah Lynch, who died after a luxury super yacht sank off the coast of Sicily on Monday, have said they're devastated and in shock. The British tech tycoon's 18-year-old daughter was the final person reported missing on that capsized boat. She's being remembered tonight by her sister as cheeky and endlessly caring. The Energy Secretary has admitted that the price cap rise will be deeply worrying for many families amid concerns that more people could fall behind on their energy bills. That price cap's going up by 10% from October for millions of households across England, Scotland and Wales. They face an average annual bill now of £1,700, which Ofgem is blaming on higher wholesale costs. Ed Miliband says he understands why people are concerned.
I know this will be really worrying news for lots of families who will face even greater struggles this winter. And it's a direct result of our country's exposure to international gas markets that are controlled by dictators, and that is a legacy left to us by the last government. That's why this government has a plan to do something about it. Our mission for clean, homegrown power that we control in this country.
And Royal Mail delivered just under 80% of first-class posts on time in the spring, missing its target set by Ofcom again. The company's been told to deliver 93% of post within one working day under rules set by the watchdog. It was fined £5.6 million last year for failing to do so, but Royal Mail insists there have been improvements to its services. Those are the latest headlines from the GB newsroom. For now, I'll be back with you for one more update at 11 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
We've had 50 days of Sir Keir Starmer's Labour government. Let's see how he's got on. We had the riots in Leeds. Which he stayed largely silent about. We had the Manchester Airport incident, where the Home Secretary appeared to take the side of the two lads who allegedly beat the living daylights out of police, breaking a female officer's nose. Then we had the Southport incident and the riots that followed. Keir Starmer didn't want to mention immigration, so he called people far right.
This was a meeting to pull together our response. A response both to the immediate challenge, which is clearly driven by far-right hatred.
Now, obviously, some people were far-right, but by no means everybody. Then he stands accused of leaning on judges to give out long sentences. He then doubled down and called everyone a racist.
The disorder is intolerable. It is incapable of justification. It's clearly racist.
He said he'd have to let people out of prison early to free up space. Those include people like Lawson Natty, a killer, but then launched Operation Early Dawn, so anyone involved in protests or dodgy social media posts could be remanded in custody. This led to some people calling him two-tier Keir. And now magistrates are told not to send people to prison because of overcrowding. When he was elected, he had promised to...
I think that we can smash the vile gangs that are running this trade, that are making a fortune putting people into boats and breaching our border security. I'm not prepared to put up with that, and that's why I think the serious answer is to smash the gangs.
So, this guy, Neil Basu, was reportedly his #1 choice to be the new head of Border Command. He turned that job down, apparently, and we still don't have anyone in charge of it. He scrapped Rwanda.
The land scheme was dead and buried before it started. It's never been a deterrent. And I'm not prepared to continue with gimmicks that don't act as a deterrent.
And now we've had thousands of people cross the Channel, including 700 in one day. All of them will now be allowed to claim asylum in Britain. The backlog currently stands at around 120,000. Starmer and Reeves told us that the Tories left them in an economic mess.
The decisions I made on winter fuel payment yesterday are not decisions I wanted to make. They were not decisions that I expected to make. But when confronted with a £22 billion black hole, I had to act.
Well, they then gave the unions a massive pay rise, didn't he? With no strings attached to improve the quality of services. The junior doctors and the train drivers have both said that they'll strike again anyway. He's under pressure to do away with anti-strike laws to make it easier for everyone to go on strike. And now it's emerged that in July alone, they borrowed £3.1 billion to pay the public sector. This led to allegations of corruption, as it emerged that Labour cabinet ministers accepted hundreds of thousands of pounds from the unions before signing off on their pay rises. Starmer scrapped winter fuel payments for pensioners, so now some old people will have to choose between heating and eating this winter, despite hammering the Tories for even thinking about doing it. He put Ed Miliband in charge of our energy sector and promised you that your bills won't go up.
That's why the Labour Party has a fully costed plan to freeze energy bills this winter.
Now your bills are going up by an average of 10%. He appointed David Lammy as Foreign Secretary at a time of massive crisis in the Middle East, a man who said that we'd arrest the Israeli Prime Minister if he ever set foot in Britain. Lammy was then snubbed by the Israeli Prime Minister when he went to visit. Labour are embroiled in a cronyism row as Labour donors and supporters are being appointed to the supposedly impartial civil service. He said that he respected the result of Brexit. Now we hear that there might be a negotiation on free movement for under 30s. It also looks like we're about to get loads more 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. His popularity ratings have plummeted, and now 52% of people think Britain is moving in the wrong direction under Sir Keir. Oh, and a record 9,500 millionaires are expected to leave the UK this year alone because of Starmer's expected tax hikes, which means that we will all end up paying more. I don't know about you, OK, but I can hardly wait for the next 50 days of hard labour. Let's get the thoughts of my panel now. Former BBC and ITV political chief John Sargent. We've got entrepreneur and businesswoman Joanna Jarju, and, of course, as well, political commentator Alex Armstrong. Well, when you look at it like that, John, I don't know, how would you evaluate his 50 days?
Difficult.
Gone well?
Everyone knew it was going to be difficult. That's why the Tories did so badly in the election. We've got serious problems, particularly about how much public finance there is available. Nothing to do with what little growth there might be or not, but just simply how much we've borrowed. It's a very big figure. It's bigger than anyone imagined a few years ago that we'd reach. That's all got to be paid for. Everybody knows, gosh, you need to look at one aspect of the public sector, whether it's the NHS, whether it's prisons, whether it's defence or anything else, that we need more money. So the idea that we sort of sit here and say it's all Labour's fault for the last 5 weeks for what they've done is absurd. Of course, it's much deeper than that.
So, I mean, some of the things that they have actually been in control of, you know, the Leeds riots, the Manchester Airport incident, all of the issues that followed, you know, after the Southport incident as well, some of the decisions that they've made. I mean, Keir Starmer, a modern-day disaster story?
Yeah, well, I was just dumbfounded listening to your monologue there, Patrick, really was. It just feels like a government that's totally unqualified. They seem ignorant to the issues that are actually... they're solving all of these so-called issues with hardcore policing, so they're actually treating the symptom, not the problem, and they just seem to be completely in total chaos when it comes to anything critical to this country. He completely ignores the message about immigration. Although the electorate have literally voted for 14 years to solve this problem, and we had a massive historical referendum to try and put this to bed once and for all, but he's still ignoring that. He's poured fuel on the fire during his press conferences, calling people racist and far right, which also wasn't helping the problem. And he's weaponised the justice system against people creating memes on the internet, and now he's releasing hardcore criminals to let those people go into prison. It is bonkers what's happening.
Joanna, I mean, you know, I find it quite impressive, actually, that he's managed to do so badly without an opposition.
I think it's just completely been blown out of proportion. I mean, Alex, you even saying that he's ignored immigration. He has a plan for immigration.
What is it?
And he started working on it. So he's talked about, yes, I know he hasn't been able to select a person that will head up about, you know, tackling the criminal gangs, but also Yvette Cooper has been talking about opening more detention centres. One of the key problems with the immigration problem that we had was not just that loads of people were coming via boats. It was also about how we were housing these people and how we were processing them. So they also want to staff more of the Home Office so that we can process people and get it done. But there's other stuff as well that they've, you know, introduced and want to do. For example, you know, lifting the ban on offshore wind that was there before, more housing targets, all of the things that we want, but it's also been 50 days. And can I just say that when we compare it to the, 46 days or 49 days of Liz Truss?
49, yeah.
A lot of the things that they're actually now trying to reverse is because of that. We were talking about pensions before. We had the Bank of England trying to protect people's pension funds before.
Well, there are some serious things that have happened in this 50 days, John, that I do suspect if the Tories had been in power, though, would have got a lot more traction. So the appointment of Labour donors and Labour members, etc., to the civil service and stuff like that. Now, that really, under the Tories, would have made massive headlines, wouldn't it? That's cronyism.
Oh, well, they did. But of course, they had lots of people that they wanted who were already in government. They've been in power for 14 years. I mean, it's all very well to sort of suddenly say, why can't you solve everything? You had 50 days messing it all up. Wait a moment. These are deep-seated problems. They're really difficult to handle. Nobody, in fact, when it comes to immigration, 120,000 people queuing up to have their asylum claims considered. I mean, the list is such a long one. You go through it all the time and then say, and it's Labour's fault.
But, you know,
I go through
to Patrick's defence, John. To Patrick's defence, there is a lot of things they could have done better, and I think, like, I mean, like, I just said it, like, well, yes, but the way he handled the riots was poor. Like, going on those press conferences and fueling. Hang on, let me speak. Like, pouring fuel on an already intense situation is a terrible way to lead.
Calling a spade a spade.
But no, but that's not.
Oh, if you're trying to
listen, Joanna, if I asked you to define what the far right is, nobody can come up with a definition of it. So what I'm saying is,
a spade. If you're trying to burn a mosque, I'm sorry.
Listen, but it's just a silly word thrown around that no one knows any meaning for it, and it riles people. No, not racist. I'm talking about the far right comment, right? And this is silly stuff, right? The leader of this country needs to be more delicate when he's addressing a divided nation.
Let me ask you a question, actually, Alex. If you wouldn't call what those rioters were doing far right, you're to the right of the political spectrum. So would you say that you're in the same? They're in the same camp as you?
I call them rioters. Is exactly what they are. If you want to call a spade, they are rioters. They don't need to be given a political denomination.
What side of the political spectrum were they?
Well, I don't think they were on one. I think they're in this independent bit at the bottom. The same way that people who are rioting for Black Lives Matter and pulling statues. No, hang on, John. No, hang on. But hang on, because when you look at the horseshoe of politics, the far right and the far left, the right at the bottom, they're pretty much together. When we had the Black Lives Matter riots and they were pulling down statues and causing criminal damage, they were heralded as heroes by this government. Now people are going around burning things, which I completely disagree with, and I can condemn it massively. We've got to stop labelling people. It just fuels the fire. That's what it is. It's just fueling fire of things that should be calmed down.
Let's deal with where Keir Starmer is as it currently stands, right? So 52% of people say that they don't think the country's moving in the right direction under him.
Right.
His net approval rating went from +7 to 0, I think. I'm right in saying and like I said before as well, you know, Parliament hasn't been recalled, right? So we've not actually got any proper serious opposition. The Tories haven't even got a leader, for goodness sake. Do you think this bodes quite badly for his next 50 days, John?
Well, no, I mean, I think the point is people will have to settle down to the point that we are in dire difficulties over a whole series of issues. The government have got to try and cope with some of them. Some of them are exceptionally difficult to cope with, like immigration, like stopping the boats. We all know this. We all know it's extremely difficult to command energy prices when you can't command them. People all know this. They know it's extremely difficult to get the right mix between wind power, climate change, all these various things. Nobody thinks it's easy. Nobody thinks, oh, well,
I'll tell you, one of the best things he did was scrap that awful Rwanda plan. And one of the best things that Rachel Reeves has done as well is to ask for an audit of all of Whitehall's finances as well. Because let's not forget the PPE contract, all the shady things that happened over the pandemic. Yes, we're in a bad position financially because of that, but we're also in a bad position because of Tory sleaze. Talk about this cronyism, but the other sleaze cost us money.
But with that, and this will have to be the final point, but on that, we scrapped the Rwanda plan. Now, plenty of people thought that wouldn't work, but they also did not have to ignore the Illegal Migration Act, which is where we are now, which means that anyone, which is currently 120,000 people on a backlog, can apply for asylum.
Yeah, it's just open doors now, isn't it? And we saw all those people queuing up in Calais and other parts of France, waiting to come to the UK once Keir Starmer won the election. And then we got flooded with them, as we've seen over the last few weeks. Unfortunately, it's the case. And instead of addressing the issue, he's pretending it hasn't happened. We've had nothing from the Home Secretary about this. What Labour have managed to achieve in 50 days is what the chaos of 14 years of Tories managed to do. And that's the problem. It's the culmination of the Uniparty handing it's 50 days of chaos under Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves, and it's only going to get worse.
All right, well, another lively start to the hour. Brilliant stuff. Right, coming up, my stellar panel give us their nominations for Greatest Prisoner Union Jackass. Excuse me. And we'll also be diving into Jermaine Genius's explosive interview with The Sun.
This is completely on me. I am 100% in the wrong and I accept full responsibility for that.
I'll bring you the rest of tomorrow's newspaper front pages at 10:30pm sharp. But next, in a new initiative that I think would make George Orwell recoil in disbelief, some of Britain's police forces are starting to utilise facial recognition technology in a way never before seen. Big Brother really is watching. Is it coming to a town or village near you? Stay tuned.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 News Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Ben, do you like baking?
Baking? Only flapjack.
Why flapjack?
It's just a childhood favourite. Otherwise, no, I don't have time to do anything, no.
Yeah.
No, do you?
I love baking.
Really?
Yeah, I find it really relaxing.
You never bring in any treats for me.
I know, I was thinking
Scones
that's
or
going to come next,
cakes?
isn't it? Scones.
Oh, it's my birthday next week.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
You know what to do?
I've
You're not
really
here,
dug
are
a
you?
hole for myself now, haven't I? No, I actually am here next week.
OK, well, you know what to do then.
OK. I'm delighted to say that we're joined now by JP from Bridget's Bakery.
BB is the brand, is the face, is the smile. She originated the motto, making London smile, so that's what we try to do on board of our lovely buses and in our shops.
Which is probably the most British thing you could imagine.
Yes, we try to do a 3-in-1. We try to really embrace all of the culture and history, so... Roadmaster buses, 1970s. Oh, nice pictures. We have the full afternoon tea, 1700.
JP, is it scone or scone? And also, where does the word come from?
Ben.
Is it of French origin?
Ben, how very dare you asking me? Are you trying to actually put me under the spotlight? I would say, according to a Belgian person, it's scone.
Scone.
Exactly.
Oh, that's what
so I like to do a mix of both. I would say...
Sorry, JP.
Common as muck. and another key question which many Brits get tangled up in is it the jam first or the cream first?
So, I'll tell you a very scientific fact I just made up on my way here this morning. The best way to eat your scone or scone is, first step, you split it in 2 halves.
Yeah.
On one half, you do the cream and jam. The other half, the jam and cream.
Oh, no.
Then, if you feel like people are looking at you, you should squash it together. And if really the tension is quite high, you should give your scone to the nearest person holding a chef jacket. There you go.
That sounds too diplomatic.
Yeah.
The People's Channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Now, in a little bit of a change to our schedule, I have some breaking news to bring you. Several individuals have been killed tonight when a man went on a stabbing spree in Germany. That man is still at large, as we understand it. So this is an ongoing incident. This is according to a German newspaper Bild. 3 people, as far as we're aware, are dead after a man with a knife went on the rampage through a German festival. The incident is believed to have happened at around 9:45 p.m. local time. Witnesses have said that the perpetrator is still at large. You can see there emergency services, helicopters overhead. Local police said that they were not yet able to comment. I do have a couple of reports coming through to me here, which is that apparently the city of Solingen, which is where this incident has taken place, was celebrating the 659th anniversary of its creation with, quotes, a festival of diversity. Apparently, what happened there was an individual went on the rampage with a knife. Multiple people died. Some reports saying that it may be as many as 3 people. 9 people stabbed in total. They described it as a frenzied attack at a festival in Germany. I will reiterate that as it currently stands, the knifeman is still believed to be at large. There are no reports at the moment as to what this possible motive could have been, but one local news outlet who's been speaking to witnesses said that emergency workers are still fighting to save the lives of several people who are still in a desperately bad situation at the moment. So, look, just to recap for you, that breaking news that we're bringing you here on GB News, it's an ongoing situation in Germany, and that several people were killed on Friday night when a man stabbed passers-by at random with a knife at a city festival in the western German city of Solingen. Bild has reported that the event occurred around 9:45 p.m. local time. It is understood that at least 3 people have died. 9 people have been stabbed. That's just the initial reports. We'll keep you updated on that as and when we get it. But in return to our original schedule of events now. It's a turn of events that would make George Orwell recoil in shock. Police in parts of the UK have begun utilising facial recognition technology, which compares faces against a database of people of interest, thus far resulting in the arrest of a woman on suspicion of a dangerous dog offence. Now, the tech, having been trialled in parts of Essex, has been put to use officially at an air show in the country's seaside town of Clacton. Yeah, so in Nigel Farage's own constituency. That's where they're rolling it out. Firstly, last week, the Prime Minister lauded the expansion of facial recognition software as a crime-busting initiative. The technology may be debuting here, but it's already in full swing in some parts of the world. Just have a little look at this video that actually, ironically, Nigel Farage put out just a few weeks ago of the way that the Chinese use it.
Okay, so here in China, if you don't know where your gate is or when your flight is, you don't need to use this to check. You just walk up to here and you let the machine scan your face. And there you go. Then you know exactly what time and what gate to be at.
I mean, China is not exactly renowned for its respect of individual liberty or data privacy, is it? So is it wise for Britain to be leveraging this same technology, using the same stuff? Joining me now to discuss this is the Battle of Ideas Festival producer, Mo Lovett. Mo, great to have you on the show. Thank you very, very much. Facial recognition technology, I think in the past it has actually linked the wrong people to murders that they've never committed. Should we be worried now that we've got this in an increased sense in Britain?
Well, yes, I think that we should, and you've highlighted the fact it can make mistakes and has made mistakes in the past. But I think even if they could correct the technology, this isn't the right way to go. It's a serious incursion on our freedom of movement and our freedom of assembly, because essentially what it's doing, it's scanning and surveilling you in a crowd on the basis that you might potentially be a criminal, that you might potentially match somebody on their database. So what it's doing is completely reversing the kind of presumption of innocence. We are now all deemed to be potential criminals and will be scanned and surveilled just in case we match up to somebody they're looking for. So yes, it's an authoritarian measure. I think it's also worth kind of bearing in mind the context in which it's being widely rolled out by Keir Starmer. It's in the context of a whole series of authoritarian measures that we've seen from the new Prime Minister in the first 50 days, which, you know, effectively, I think it is designed to create a climate of fear. It's meant to have a chilling effect on free speech, and anybody who might want to protest or even just express concerns about government policy or inaction on things like illegal immigration. It's creating that chilling effect that means we cannot speak up on political issues. And
yeah, I suppose, Mo, look, what people on the other side of this would say is, well, if you don't do anything wrong, you haven't got anything to worry about. So what's the problem?
Yeah, exactly. They do say that. And they also say that, you know, if they scan you and match you and it turns out you're innocent, they won't retain your image. That's kind of a checks and balances that they say is important. But the point is, you are still being surveilled. You are still being viewed with suspicion. And as I say, this is a reversal of the presumption of innocence. And we've seen this time and time again from this government recently announcing, calling people criminals when they hadn't even been through the judicial process. So it's anti-democratic and it's anti freedom. And I don't think the government or the police chiefs have remembered that they are actually public servants. They're not public masters. It's not their job to tell us where we should go, who we should meet, or kind of surveil us to make sure we're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, Patrick, that story you've just broken, that live story from Germany, you know, it's a really, really tragic thing. The point is, you know, this facial recognition technology, it's not going to prevent things like that, because how you prevent things like that is using intelligence, like they did with the Taylor Swift concert a couple of weeks ago, and also by people acting suspiciously, not because you happen to resemble somebody who might have created an offence and is on a watch list. That's a very dangerous authoritarian path to go down.
OK, look, Mo, thank you very much. I am very sorry that section was squeezed, but of course we did have that breaking news, so I appreciate you waiting on the line for us there. That's Mo Lovett there, who is the Battle of Ideas Festival producer. Look, just quickly before we move on to what's coming up, I just want to reiterate the breaking news that we had for you a little bit earlier on, which is that as it currently stands, 3 people have sadly died in what's been described as a frenzied stabbing spree in Germany. It was at a, quote, festival of diversity near Berlin. It appears that the individual who is believed to be responsible for that is still at large, OK? And it's happened at the German town of Solingen. 9 other people we think have also been injured. We will keep you up to date on that as and when we get it. But yes, coming up, my super panel are going to give you their nominations for Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. And as promised, we'll be looking into more of this.
This is completely on me. I am 100% in the wrong and I accept full responsibility for that.
Yeah, I'll bring you the rest of tomorrow's newspaper front pages at 10:30 sharp with a full analysis and reaction from my press pack, with more on the horrific news of a mass stabbing in Germany from our Home and Security editor Mark White at 10:45. Stay tuned.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update, brought to you from the Met Office. Through this weekend, it's going to remain fairly cool and wet for many of us on Saturday, drier and a little bit warmer through the rest of the weekend, though. It's been a disruptive start to the day with Storm Lillian. That's now moved away into the North Sea. Behind it is a clearer picture. We're starting to pick up more of a southwesterly wind. That will drag in some showers to parts of southwestern Scotland, many western areas of Scotland, in fact, as well as Northern Ireland through the first part of the night. But over to the second part of the night, the early hours of Saturday, we look to the south, where a band of very heavy rain moves into many southern counties. Lots of cloud pulling in from the south as well, ahead of that across the Wales and the Midlands. Now, there is a rain warning in force for many eastern areas of England, particularly the south and east, where we could see around 60 millimetres of rain falling throughout Saturday morning. And with lots of people travelling around, there could be some disruption on the roads and delays to travel. Further north, a slightly drier picture, but still some pretty heavy showers are likely for parts of Scotland and northwestern England. A drier picture, though, for the far north of Scotland, as well as the north and east across parts of Aberdeenshire and the Moray coast. And here it should stay relatively dry and bright through much of the day, but showers will continue to affect the north and west, as well as some areas of Wales and southwestern England. Now, the heaviest rain will clear away to the far south and east, but showers will likely move into these areas later on in the afternoon. So a pretty mixed picture for most of us on Saturday. And with quite brisk winds still through the day, it's still going to feel on the cooler side of things. We could see temperatures sticking around in the mid-teens for many of us. On Sunday, it looks a little bit warmer. There will be more in the way of sunshine, particularly through the morning across parts of England and Wales, but the next batch of rain will spread into parts of the northwest. Doesn't look quite as heavy, but will introduce quite a lot of cloud and some quite widespread drizzly rain. More widely dry as we look ahead to Monday, and temperatures will start to rise much closer to average, and we're looking at the mid-20s by Tuesday.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Nana Acquia. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Now it's time to bring you the very first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages, so let's do it. I'm going to start with the Eye. New HS2 fast trains too high for station platforms, costing taxpayers an extra £200 million. I mean, just when you think the story of HS2 couldn't get any worse, bingo, it does. The Daily Express, cruel beyond belief to be taken on precipice of her life. It is cruel beyond belief that Mike Lynch's daughter Hannah died on her holiday there. She was just 18 years old. That is, of course, the super yacht disaster. Let's go to the Daily Telegraph. Minister, Putin grip on Russia is shaken. Apparently, the Ukrainian offensive into that part of Russia has shaken Putin. They also have the picture story there of Hannah, who was Mike Lynch's daughter. Let's go to the Mirror. Not a leg to stand on. There's a big picture of Jermaine Genus there. BBC staff horrified by sacked Match of the Day stars text, which, quotes, crossed a line. Horrified, they say. They insist that there is evidence that say there were suggestive texts. Another insider has told the Mirror he doesn't have a leg to stand on. Let's go to the Sun now, who are really leading the way on this. So, in fact, the first 5 pages of the Sun tomorrow will be entirely devoted to Jermaine Genus and his, would you call it love life? I don't know. But anyway, it says, sorry to my wife and the woman I texted. He says it wasn't physical, but it was cheating. He says, I'm self-destructive and I let my family down. This is a tearful interview with Jermaine Genus. We can bring you a little clip of that interview now.
This is completely on me. I am 100% in the wrong and I accept full responsibility for that. And it's something that obviously I need to address and look at myself. The family situation is the things that is at the forefront of my mind that I'm trying to just piece back together. But I've also got to be able to kind of look myself in the mirror and understand where I've gone wrong and understand that this is on me, it's not anybody else, there's nobody else to blame here.
OK, so that's the latest from Jermaine Genus. Yesterday he said that he wasn't very happy about everything and that he was going to refer to his lawyers and that there are 2 sides to every story. Today, he's very, very sorry. It's all his fault. And he's begging for forgiveness from anyone who's ever met him. John, we've got the full story here that's in The Sun. What do you make of this? They say that there were X-rated messages. Is this a sackable offence?
I don't know. I mean, we don't know what's in the X-rated messages. What we've got is him saying it's all gone wrong and it's all his fault. I must say, if I was in that position, I wouldn't think a long interview with The Sun was the answer to this. I think a long interview with his wife would be better, and in private. And this whole sort of assumption that you get to a level of so-called celebrity and then you must have it all in public, I tell you, I would not advise it.
Yeah. I mean, really, this hinges on what was in those messages, right?
Everything hinges on that.
I mean, I actually understand why he's doing it with The Sun. He's probably made whatever comments and then his agents have said, whoa, hold on, you've got to find a job after this. So I think it's damage control in terms of his own reputation and kind of specifying that it was consensual and it was, even though it was inappropriate and all of this. So I think he's just trying to claw back any type of public image that he could have.
His wife...
He's still relatively young. Well, he's young.
Yeah, but his wife isn't talking. I mean, she's the person who's harmed. So the idea that, I mean, it's all this stuff about, it's all about me. No, it's about him and his family and his children.
If he doesn't speak, then everybody else speaks for him, and then it leads to speculation. And because of all the different controversies that we've seen with the BBC,
but he brings it all on to himself.
He
it's about
has,
himself
but also
he's
got to, he's got to protect that and make sure that people don't run with the story and speculate, and then rumours get out there.
Can I also just say, right, that, there've been a lot of stories about some BBC talent recently, haven't there?
There have been, yeah.
And this might be quite salacious, but he's come out now and he said on the front of The Sun, I'm so ashamed. It wasn't physical, but it was cheating. He says he's sorry to his wife. He's sorry to the women. Sorry, that's interesting. Women.
Oh, 2 women,
so, there is that, isn't there? He says he's self-destructed, he's let his family down. the BBC have got rid of him straight away. You know, it's not the biggest scandal the BBC have had to deal with recently.
And how quickly have they moved on this as well? I mean, it's taken other presenters and other people in the spotlight with worse allegations, years, decades even, to come to the same level of justice, so to speak. So I do feel like maybe he's getting a bit of a bad rap, or maybe the BBC are trying to learn lessons. I don't know, but you know, it's his private life at the end of the day. I feel that it's come out in the public, and that his wife has to go through it and his kids have to go through it. But you know, he's obviously choosing to do this interview as well.
Because so he's saying that he was on a holiday with his wife recently, and he knew that there was a disciplinary procedure that was taking place, and he basically secretly went off and did a Zoom call, and at the end of that Zoom call he realised that he was going to get sacked. So he then apparently said to her, I've just been sacked from the BBC. She said, what for? He said, for sending text messages that weren't appropriate to two girls. So he's saying that it's to two girls there. He said that his wife was, quote, absolutely raging. I'm not surprised.
But we don't know what the messages were.
We don't know what those messages were.
We probably won't ever find out, actually. We probably will never know.
When I see her now, she's just making sure the children are okay.
Call me a cynic here, John, right? Call me a cynic here, but the BBC did not have to announce sensationally yesterday, we've sacked Jermaine Genius.
Well,
we've sacked him. And so they did announce that. He obviously
because people like you in the past have said BBC are dilly-dallying, they waited weeks, they didn't act swiftly. They're saying, look, if we hear and we're sure of what our evidence is, which they obviously were sure of because he's now admitted it, they wanted to see themselves acting quickly.
I think they've done it in such a big way, is what I'm saying, to try and maybe take the heat off a couple of other things. I'm not saying they shouldn't have sacked him. I'm not trying to go into bat for Jermaine Genius here.
A couple of what other sort of things?
Well, you know, they've had recent scandals, haven't they, with people like you?
I mean, they could be making an example of him.
This is now, isn't it?
Yeah, they could be making an example of him for sure, and it is very quick, over 2 weeks. I don't know. And when I heard that he was kind of, you know, yesterday, his statement obviously was completely different. It made me think of Noel Clarke, I think, who had a bit of a dispute with BAFTA as well. And there were things that came out later on that weren't really correct, but then his name was dragged through the mud. So I think, I don't know, maybe they should have been a bit more careful, but then they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't.
But this doesn't clear anything up, that's the point.
And it's nowhere near the level of all the other stuff.
Some other newspaper will presumably get hold of his wife. She will have 5 pages of what she thought about it all. The 2 women involved, there are 2 women involved, they at some point will have to...
Well, you know, that's exactly what I was going to say. And I think Joanna nailed it earlier on. There's obviously a bit of both sides playing it here. You know, he's trying to save his job or his future career. You know, he had to go out and say something rather than nothing. There's a lot at stake here. And obviously this is something that employees at the BBC have complained about as well. So it's not like previous presenters where it was an outsider who was you know, saying all these things, these allegations.
There's a thing about the level of talent as well, because it's like, yes, OK, he does the one show and he does the sports shows, but then are they guilty of maybe protecting the bigger stars?
Possibly. Yeah. OK, look, we are going to move it on from that because this is another breaking story, and it's a very serious one indeed. Several individuals have been killed on Friday night, tonight, when a man stabbed passers-by at random with a knife at a city festival in the western German city of Solingen. That's according to German newspaper Bild. Bild reported that the event occurred at around 9:45 p.m. local time. Witnesses said that the perpetrator is still at large, apparently, and local police said they were not able to comment on that yet. This is clearly a very, very concerning incident, and there's quite a lot of footage coming out about it which would appear to indicate that this is very serious indeed. Joining us now is our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, thank you very much. What do we know?
Well, we know that multiple people have been stabbed. There are reports of at least 3 people who have died. That has not been confirmed by the German authorities, but is being widely reported now in the German press. A number of other people stabbed and injured and being attended to by paramedics at the scene. Now, this was in Solingen, which is a western city in Germany. It's a reasonably small city, but it's near the larger cities of Düsseldorf and Cologne. It was a festival, we're told, that was celebrating the 650th anniversary of this city and also celebrating diversity in the city when, according again to reports, a single male, no reports of multiple attackers, but a man started randomly stabbing people in a central square in Zollingham. That man has now disappeared. There is an active manhunt for this individual. Police helicopters, very significant policing resources that have been brought in to the central area of Zollingham, and the authorities are telling people to stay at home, not to venture out, because of course this armed suspect, believed to still be armed with a knife, is out there. They don't know any more than that at this stage, but of course, as always with these incidents, Patrick, attention turns to the potential for this being a terrorist attack. It was certainly a random attack, or an attack in a crowded place targeting multiple people. It absolutely fits the profile of what we've seen before in these targeted attacks, where individuals have tried to kill and injure as many people as possible in crowded places.
No, indeed. And as far as we're aware at the moment, it appears that they have not managed to apprehend the individual involved, Mark. Is that right?
No, and that's the worrying aspect about this. Normally, of course, you will find that attackers can often stay around. I mean, depending on the ideology that's involved in an attack, quite often they want to be martyred. Some do disappear, and that makes it much more difficult for the police, the investigative services, to get a handle on exactly what's happened and what the danger to other people is, because as long as this person is at large, then clearly he poses a danger. So while that is the case, people are being, as I said, urged just to stay indoors, lock their doors, and not venture out onto the streets of this city. Lots of police resources now in a manhunt looking for this individual, in tandem, of course, with the paramedics, the emergency services, who are dealing with multiple casualties, as some of them were told very seriously injured.
Yeah, indeed. So a massive search operation underway. And Mark, unfortunately, incidents like these appear to be becoming more and more common, don't they? We have to report on this stuff all too often now around mainland Europe and here in Britain. Obviously, we don't know the motive about this yet. I've got little to no description of an individual who may be responsible to this. And I certainly don't want to jump to conclusions. But these kind of mass marauding knife attacks are now a regular thing, unfortunately, aren't they?
Yes, I mean, quite frankly, the motivation, is one thing. What you have got is a mass stabbing attack, as you've said. Just as we saw in Southport, of course, there were these misleading reports on social media that pointed to this being an Islamist attack. It wasn't on that occasion, but it was an absolutely horrific incident targeting multiple people. And at the very least, this is an absolutely horrific incident targeting multiple people. It will, in the fullness of time, become apparent what the motivation of this individual was. But I can tell you that right across Europe, security services have been on heightened alert in recent months for the potential of Islamist attacks. They were particularly concerned around the Olympics in Paris. That thankfully passed off without major incident. You've got the paramedics of the Paralympics coming up in Paris as well, so some added concern about that. But Germany has seen a number of Islamist-related attacks over the last year that have targeted politicians and other people in crowded places there that have been Islamist inspired. So there is real concern. And as I say, we don't know who the individual was, what his motivation was, but of course the police and security services will be working as hard as they can to try to identify what a potential motive was.
Yeah, and what do we know about the German police, Mark? I mean, are they always armed, are they? They seem to be very, very quick at responding to this. I mean, the incident is believed to have happened at around 9:45 p.m. local time. As we understand it, they were there almost immediately. There were, unfortunately, at least 3 fatalities. That's being reported. It's believed that potentially as many as 9 people have been quite seriously injured in this. We're seeing footage here of police helicopters in the air. We're seeing a huge police response down there. It was at this festival of diversity, as you said, so perhaps there was already a police and emergency service presence there, as you would expect at any kind of large gathering. But how do the German police normally approach this kind of stuff?
Well, they are an armed police service, Patrick, but they don't carry sort of automatic weapons as a rule. The beat officers. So what you have is police officers with sidearms, with handguns, and they will call in, just like they do in the UK, specialist resources if you're dealing with a marauding attack with one or more attackers on the loose and potentially causing a real risk to the public. Then those specialist units come in, so armed officers who are trained to a higher level and who carry long-barreled weapons and all manner of other paraphernalia that they need to be able to deal with the likes of a hostage situation or just an armed individual, whatever they might be armed with. So yes, they're an armed service, and you're right, they would have been on the scene pretty quickly. The fact this festival was underway, it will have at a level of policing and paramedic resource as any sort of large gathering of people does, in case something untoward happens. So they will have been there reasonably quickly. But this person, it happened quickly. This person then disappeared, it seems, just as quickly. And as yet, that very worrying news from the German authorities is that he is still on the loose.
Yeah, no, indeed. And, of course, these kind of things are very, very difficult to actually stop, Mark, aren't they? Because if it is, as all indication would appear to be at the moment, some kind of lone wolf marauding knife attack, unless you happen to have prior intelligence on an individual or they are under surveillance at the time, it's very difficult to stop that kind of thing. But it just adds, again, doesn't it, to this sense of unrest. I mean, we had the Taylor Swift issue in Vienna recently, where there was, so she had to cancel some shows, didn't she, which led to an increased police presence here. That sense, really, that now just attending a mass gathering poses some kind of problem. But, yes, very difficult to stop and intervene in this kind of thing, isn't it?
It's one of the biggest concerns for the security services at the moment is this sort of divergence from these plots that used to take place with multiple individuals planning quite sophisticated terrorist attacks, now moving towards, and it really happened with Islamic State in earnest when the IS group emerged in Iraq and Syria. They as opposed to Al-Qaeda, which tried to go for more spectacular attacks, told their followers just to get behind the wheel of a car, just pick up a brick or a knife or anything and go out and kill in the name of whatever perverted religion they happen to be following. So that is a big concern for the security services, because if you've only got one individual who is not colluding with others as such, is maybe just being fed from the internet and whatever hateful ideology is pouring and out on the internet, then the police and the security services don't really know what that individual might be consuming and how they're being influenced. And then it's as simple as just heading to the kitchen drawer and taking out a deadly knife or getting behind the wheel of a vehicle. So it's very difficult to get any kind of any ahead of any attack like this, and until it's too late, until it's actually happened, Patrick.
Look, Mark, thank you very, very much for keeping us up to date on that and giving us a lot more information as well. Your expertise is much appreciated, certainly when we've got times like this. That's Mark White there, he's our Home and Security Editor. Look, just to bring you right up to date, a little bit more information appears to be coming out now that 3 people have died. A couple of others are currently in a really, really serious condition. This is a mass stabbing event that unfortunately appears to still be taking place because the suspect has not yet been apprehended at the Festival of Diversity in Solingen, which is indeed near Berlin. All right. So, look, there's loads more coming your way here on GB News. Sorry to end it on such a depressing note, but it's headliners next.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Through this weekend, it's going to remain fairly cool and wet for many of us on Saturday, drier and a little bit warmer through the rest of the weekend, though. It's been a disruptive start to the day with Storm Lillian. That's now moved away into the North Sea. Behind it is a clearer picture. We're starting to pick up more of a southwesterly wind. That will drag in some showers to parts of southwestern Scotland, many western areas of Scotland, in fact, as well as Northern Ireland through the first part of the night. But over to the second part of the night, the early hours of Saturday, we look to the south where a band of very heavy rain moves into many southern counties. Lots of cloud pulling in from the south as well, ahead of that across the Wales and the Midlands. Now, there is a rain warning in force for many eastern areas of England, particularly the south and east, where we could see around 60 millimetres of rain falling throughout Saturday morning. And with lots of people travelling around, there could be some disruption on the roads and delays to travel. Further north, a slightly drier picture, but still some pretty heavy showers are likely for parts of Scotland and northwestern England. A drier picture, though, for the far north of Scotland as well as the north and east across parts of Aberdeenshire and the Moray coast. And here it should stay relatively dry and bright through much of the day, but showers will continue to affect the north and west, as well as some areas of Wales and southwestern England. Now, the heaviest rain will clear away to the far south and east, but showers will likely move into these areas later on in the afternoon. So a pretty mixed picture for most of us on Saturday. And with quite brisk winds still through the day, it's still going to feel on the cooler side of things. We could see temperatures sticking around in the mid-teens for many of us. On Sunday, it looks a little bit warmer. There will be more in the way of sunshine, particularly through the morning across parts of England and Wales. But the next
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours, but time is ticking. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
A new 9-storey high mural celebrating Jewish life in Britain's capital has been unveiled in Finchley Road. The mural's artist, Leon Fenster, joins me now. Leon, welcome to GB News. Congratulations on the work. Tell me a little bit about the concept and how you put it together.
Mm-hmm. Well, all of my artworks are essentially storytelling. So trying to pull back the curtain on some specific world that I can reveal, whether that's the world of a particular family, of a community, of an organisation, of a city. And in this case, the challenge was how to depict in a single artwork the entire story of Jews in the city of London. I don't really plan too much. I start somewhere, one thing leads to the next, to the next, to the next, the way we remember the world in our dreams and our memories. And then after a few months, it was ready and we put it up onto the wall.
Give me an idea of the dimensions of this thing. We've talked about it being 7 stories high.
Right.
Also looks like it's pretty broad.
The wall is 14 metres wide and it's to the top of the artwork is 26 metres. Mm-hmm. So definitely my largest yet, I would say.
I didn't know Benjamin Disraeli had a bar mitzvah.
He did not. He made a point of not having one. These artworks, there's this kind of mischievous sense of humour. Oh. So actually, Benjamin Disraeli's father left Bevis Mark Synagogue after an argument and immediately had his children baptised. Yes. Just a couple of months before Benjamin Disraeli's bar mitzvah would have been. So I'm sort of slightly cheekily imagining him finally getting to have the bar mitzvah he never had. He might not be too happy about this, to be honest.
Because after all, Benjamin Disraeli would not have been Prime Minister in that era.
Quite.
Has he been willing to attest to the Church of England?
That's right, absolutely. So that's why there's something slightly cheeky about it. Exactly.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very good evening to you. You're with GB News. The headliners up next. First, though, a look at the top stories tonight. And we start with an update on that breaking